You deaf or something? Tanner growled, stepping into the aisle and shoving Aaliyah hard enough to make her stumble. The bus fell into stunned silence, every eye locked on the girl who'd been quiet all week. But when Aaliyah dropped her backpack, squared her stance, and drove a clean punch into his ribs, no one dared to breathe. It was barely 7:12 a.m. when the school bus hissed to a stop on Waverly Lane. The air in Cedar Hill, Indiana was crisp, the kind that clung to your sleeves and nipped at your cheeks. Aaliyah James stood at the curb, backpack snug on her shoulders, hoodie up, earbuds in but not playing anything, just there to give her a buffer from the world she was about to walk into. Again. This was her fourth school in 2 years. She'd memorized the pattern by now, new hallway, new whispers, new where are you from, and who's she, looks. But today, it wasn't the school she was nervous about. It was the bus. It was always the bus. The yellow doors creaked open, and she stepped up, one sneakered foot after the other. Inside was a rolling ecosystem of teenagers, some laughing too loudly, others huddled in groups over phones, backpacks sprawled across empty seats like reserved signs. No one looked up. Not the driver, who kept his eyes on the mirror. Not the kids. It was like she didn't exist. Aaliyah paused. There was a seat halfway down on the left, next to a boy with a hoodie pulled up and knees bouncing. Then one near the emergency exit, surrounded by a trio of white girls who eyed her like she didn't belong. So she did what she always did, she chose the front. It wasn't about being close to the driver. It was about putting space between her and the stairs, the whispers she knew were coming. She slid into the second row on the right and set her bag on her lap like armor. Someone behind her snorted. Then another voice, low and taunting, "Why's she sitting up there like she owned the place?" Aaliyah didn't flinch. She'd learned that from her dad. You don't blink when they poke. You don't respond when they bait. You let silence speak louder than anything they expect. Her dad, Coach James to everyone else, used to say, "You don't fight every fight. Some you just outlast." But that was before. Before the heart attack. Before the funeral with the folded flag. Before it was just her and Mom bouncing from city to city while her mom chased nursing contracts and tried to keep food on the table. The next morning, the bus arrived 2 minutes earlier. Aaliyah climbed in the same way, same row, same seat. This time, the energy felt different. Sharper. Like the air before a thunderstorm. As she moved past the middle rows, a foot slid out just a few inches. She saw it but didn't react in time. Her shin clipped the boot of a boy with shaggy blonde hair and a varsity jacket that didn't belong to a freshman. Tanner Brooks. He didn't look at her at first. Just leaned back, arms sprawled across the top of the seat like he was the king of this mobile kingdom. His voice came lazy and loud. "Yo," he said, to no one and everyone, "front seats are for people who actually go here. You sure you're on the right bus?" A few heads turned. No one laughed. Not yet. But the tension pulsed like a second heartbeat. Aaliyah stopped walking. Turned her head slowly. Her eyes found his. Brown, steady, unreadable. "I'm fine where I am," she said. 3 seconds of silence. Then the chuckle came, not from Tanner but one of his boys 2 seats down, braces flashing, hoodie too big. It was the kind of laugh that gave permission. Snickers followed, whispers fluttering like moth wings behind her. Tanner grinned. "Just asking. People from around here know the rules." Aaliyah tilted her head. "Yeah? What rules?" He shrugged, mock innocent. "Stay with your kind. Sit where you belong." And there it was. No subtext. No code. Just straight up, out loud segregation masked as sarcasm. The driver said nothing. Didn't look back. The hum of the engine swallowed the moment whole. Aaliyah exhaled slowly, turned, and walked to her seat. She didn't slam her bag. Didn't roll her eyes. Just sat down and looked out the window like the cornfields passing by held more relevance than anything Tanner Brooks could ever say. But inside? Inside she was fire. That week, it didn't stop. It escalated. Tanner's voice was like clockwork every time she stepped onto the bus. Yo, what's that smell? Bet she gets free lunch. You know they got scholarship quotas now, right? And it wasn't just the words. It was the way people shifted when she passed. The way backpacks were moved like she might steal something on her way to a seat. The girls whispering behind open phones. The silence from the others, the kind that echoed louder than any insult. Aaliyah kept quiet. Her mother noticed the change, how she was more withdrawn, her earbuds, and even at dinner, her voice a notch flatter than usual. But when she asked, Aaliyah just said, "It's fine, Mom. I'm used to it." Except she wasn't. Not really. Not this version of it. By Friday, the tension had a heartbeat. Aaliyah climbed onto the bus, hoodie up. She was halfway to her seat when it happened again, Tanner's foot, this time angled just right. Her toe caught the edge. She didn't fall, but her balance shifted just enough for her binder to slide out of her arms. Papers scattered down the aisle like a snowstorm. "Oh, my bad," Tanner said, not even trying to fake innocence. "Didn't see you there." Trevor barked a laugh. Landon, the quiet one, looked away. The driver kept the bus rolling. Aaliyah knelt. One by one, she picked up the pages, straightened them, tucked them back into the binder. Then she stood up, adjusted her bag, and turned to Tanner. Her voice was quiet, but the steel in it rang out loud, "Didn't see you either." The laughter died in his throat. She walked to her seat, back straight, knuckles white around the binder. She didn't cry. But that night, she didn't eat much either. Just sat in the garage with the overhead light buzzing softly above her. The old punching bag still hung from the beam in the corner, worn, lopsided, patched with duct tape. Her dad's gloves were on the workbench, still smelling faintly of sweat and leather. She slipped them on. They used to swallow her hands whole. Now they fit just right. She didn't punch to hurt. She punched to remember. To breathe. "Don't swing to fight," her dad used to say. "Swing to mean it." There's a difference. And with every jab, she told herself, "Keep your peace. But don't let them take your power." Monday would come. And when it did, they'd find out exactly what that meant. That Friday night, long after the school bus had emptied and the last paper from her binder had been refiled, Aaliyah James sat alone in the garage. The fluorescent bulb overhead flickered with a soft buzz, casting a pale circle of light over the old punching bag that hung from the rafter. It was dusty, the leather cracked at the seams, patched with tape in time. Her dad's gloves, the same gloves he wore back when he coached, rested on the nearby shelf. She hadn't touched them since he passed. But tonight, she needed them. Needed him. The fire that had been building inside her all week couldn't be ignored anymore. Not after what happened on the bus. Not after Tanner laughed in her face as her pages slid across the dirty aisle. Not after the driver didn't even blink. Not after the kids, some who didn't even know her name, joined in with looks and whispers, like her humiliation was just the morning's entertainment. She hadn't fought back. Not yet. But the storm was brewing. Slowly, she pulled the gloves over her hands. They felt stiff but familiar. Like muscle memory. Like safety. Like home. She stepped toward the bag, feet shoulder-width apart, knees loose, hands raised in the stance her father taught her when she was 9. "It's not about hurting," he used to say. "It's about control. You fight for control. You fight for peace." That night, she didn't fight to lash out. She fought to remember. Jab. Cross. Hook. Breathe. Jab. Cross. Breathe. The rhythm steadied her. Her thoughts slowed. The fear and frustration twisted into something sharper. Something focused. And when her mom finally opened the garage door to check on her, Aaliyah didn't stop. She just wiped the sweat from her brow and kept swinging. Her mom leaned against the frame, arms crossed, eyes tired but full of something stronger than worry. "He'd be proud," she said quietly. Aaliyah didn't answer. She didn't need to. The next morning, Saturday, she woke early. Her knuckles were sore. Her body ached. But something inside felt lighter, like she had taken a piece of her power back. She helped her mom with groceries, finished her homework, kept her earbuds in all weekend but didn't play music. She was listening to herself. Replaying every moment from that bus ride, every word Tanner said, every laugh that echoed too loud, every time she clenched her jaw and looked away. She wasn't going to look away anymore. Monday came like a fuse burning down. The air was colder, sky grayer. As the bus rounded the corner, she was already waiting at the curb, her backpack slung low, hood down. No earbuds this time. She wanted to hear everything. The bus hissed and stopped. She climbed on. Tanner was already there, middle row, same seat, legs sprawled across the aisle like he paid rent for the space. His boys flanked him, laughing about something on Trevor's phone. The moment Aaliyah stepped up, Tanner looked up. Smirk ready. Eyes waiting. He didn't even wait for her to get halfway down before standing. Slowly. Deliberately. Like this was a game he was about to win. "Nah," he said loud enough for the whole bus to hear. "You don't sit here today." She didn't slow. Kept walking. He stepped into the aisle, chest puffed out, blocking her path completely. His face inches from hers now. "I said that seat's taken." Aaliyah tilted her head. "By who?" "By someone who belongs up here," Tanner spat. "Not you." The laughter wasn't loud this time. It was nervous. Edgy. Like everyone could sense something was different. Aaliyah stared at him. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but her face stayed still. "I'm not moving," she said. Tanner chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "You deaf or something?" He stepped closer, shoulder bumping hers. And then, he pushed her. Not hard enough to knock her down. Just enough to cross the line. Enough to make a statement. Enough to show the others who was in charge. But what he didn't know was that she'd already decided. Aaliyah's backpack dropped to the floor. With a dull thud. She squared her stance, eyes locked, hands up, not raised, not threatening, just ready. A murmur rippled down the bus. One kid whispered, "Yo." Tanner didn't even get a word out. She slipped left, ducked under his reaching arm, and planted a sharp, clean body shot right into his ribs. It wasn't a wild swing. It wasn't sloppy. It was precise. Controlled. Measured. Just like her dad taught her. The sound Tanner made wasn't loud, it was tight, strangled. He doubled over, gasping, stumbling backward into his seat with his hand on his side. Aaliyah stepped back, picked up her backpack, and said, voice low but steady, "That was a warning. Try that again, I won't hold back." Silence. Complete, crushing silence. Even the engine seemed to go quiet. Tanner didn't say a word. Didn't look at her. Didn't move. Neither did his friends. The driver finally turned his head slightly, eyes wide in the mirror, but he said nothing. Aaliyah walked to her seat like nothing had happened and sat down. No one laughed. No one whispered. And for the rest of that ride, the only sound was the rumble of tires on asphalt and the occasional cough. She didn't smile. She didn't feel proud. She just felt done. Done shrinking. Done swallowing it. Done pretending silence was the same thing as peace. That afternoon, the call came. The school office. The principal wanted to see her. Of course he did. When she stepped inside his office, he didn't even look up at first. Principal Harris was tall, graying, the kind of man who wore silence like a suit. He finally looked up, hands folded on the desk. "Aaliyah," he said, "I've got some concerns about this morning." She nodded once. "Tanner Brooks is in the nurse's office." Says he was hit. Says you attacked him. Aaliyah said nothing. Is there anything you want to say? She tilted her head. Did he say why he was standing in the aisle? Or why he pushed me first? Harris blinked. That's not what he reported. Of course not, she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I didn't attack him. I ended it. He studied her for a long second. We're looking into it. But for now, I have to issue a 1-day in-school suspension. It's procedure. She took the slip without flinching. When she got home, her mom was quiet. They sat at the kitchen table over reheated spaghetti. Finally, her mom said, "You okay?" Aaliyah nodded. He pushed me first. Her mom exhaled. I don't need to know what happened. I know you. And I know your father would have said the same thing I'm about to say. Aaliyah looked up. What's that? Protecting your peace doesn't mean staying silent, her mom said. It means knowing when to speak, with words or with action. Aaliyah didn't answer. But that night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she knew something had changed. Not just with Tanner. Not just with the bus. Something in her. And tomorrow, they'd all feel it too. The next morning, the school bus pulled up to the curb at precisely 7:11, and for the first time in a week, Aaliyah James didn't feel that familiar knot tighten in her stomach. She stood a little taller as the doors folded open and the familiar hiss of the brakes greeted her ears. Her steps up the stairs were deliberate, steady. Her eyes scanned the rows ahead, but this time, not to avoid the stairs. She wanted them to see her. The bruises weren't visible, but the silence was. That heavy kind of silence that follows something real. No one said a word as she made her way down the aisle. No outbursts. No side comments. Even Tanner was quiet, slouched in his usual seat, his eyes on the floor, hand resting near his ribs like a reminder of the line he tried to cross. Aaliyah walked right past him. No flinch. No glance. Just presence. She sat down in her usual spot near the front, placed her bag in her lap, and stared out the window as the bus pulled off. For the first time since stepping on that bus, she felt the weight begin to lift, not all at once, but enough to breathe again. Enough to reclaim space. The ride to school was so still it felt surreal. The kids who usually giggled behind their phones were now peeking cautiously at her, whispering not with mockery, but uncertainty. Like they weren't sure who she was anymore, or what she might do next. Like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the target they assumed she'd always be. And she wasn't. Not anymore. When the bus came to a halt in front of Cedar Hill High, students filed off in small, quiet clusters. Aaliyah was near the last to rise. As she stood, one voice cut through the silence. Hey. She turned her head. Sky. A white girl with strawberry blonde curls who normally sat 3 rows back and never once had acknowledged her. Today, she stood in the aisle, clutching her backpack with both hands. You good? Aaliyah paused. Then nodded. Sky gave a tight smile, then stepped closer and said, You did what most of us wish we could have done. He's been pushing people for years. Aaliyah didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Sky shrugged and added, Mind if I sit with you tomorrow? It caught her off guard. But Aaliyah's nod was genuine. That was enough. The rest of the day unfolded differently. Kids didn't look at her the same. Teachers gave her slightly longer glances. Some students nodded at her in the halls. Others, like Tanner's circle, kept their heads down. Even Landon, the boy who had been silent in Tanner's shadow, caught up to her outside math class. Hey, he said, fumbling with the strap on his backpack. Just wanted to say sorry. I should have said something. I saw everything. His voice trailed off. Aaliyah waited. She wasn't about to rescue him from his own discomfort. Landon exhaled. I was scared to be next. That's not an excuse. I'm sorry. Aaliyah gave him the same look she gave Tanner on the bus. Not hateful. Not angry. Just honest. Then don't be silent next time, she said. Not for me. For you. And with that, she walked past him. Her pace calm. But something in her had shifted again. That afternoon, in English class, when Ms. Darden asked them to write about the time you changed the way someone saw you, Aaliyah stared at the blank page for a few seconds. Then she picked up her pen. She didn't write about the punch. She didn't write about Tanner. She wrote about silence. About how silence can feel like safety until it becomes a cage. And how one moment, just one, can teach you that silence is not the same as peace. She wrote until the bell rang. When school ended and she stepped back onto the bus, Tanner wasn't there. His seat was empty. His friends sat scattered, more subdued. Aaliyah slid into her spot. A moment later, Sky joined her. No words were exchanged. Just a shared look. Then another surprise. A boy from the back, one of the quiet kids who always had earbuds in, walked down the aisle and held out a folded note. This is for you, he said. Aaliyah took it, watched him walk back, then unfolded it. For words written in neat block letters, you made me braver. That night at dinner, Aaliyah told her mom about everything. The silence. The note. The apology. Her mom didn't say much at first, just listened. Then she reached over, squeezed Aaliyah's hand, and smiled. They see you now, she said. Not because you shouted, but because you stood. Aaliyah let that sink in. It was true. She hadn't yelled, hadn't screamed, hadn't cursed. She had just stood. But in that standing, in that single moment of reclaiming space, she had cracked something open in every student on that bus. Maybe even in that school. She didn't feel like a hero. She just felt like herself again. Strong. Unapologetic. Seen. That week, more things changed. A boy she barely knew held the door for her and muttered, "That was badass." A teacher asked her to help mentor new students during lunch. Even the principal, Mr. Harris, passed her in the hallway and said, "Good to see you, Miss James." No lectures. No file in her record. Just acknowledgement. The energy shifted. One morning, 5 days after the bus incident, Tanner returned. He climbed onto the bus slower than usual, his movements stiff, his expression unreadable. He didn't look at Aaliyah. Didn't say a word. Just sat in the middle row and kept his head down. But everyone watched. Everyone waited. Aaliyah didn't flinch. She didn't care if he had something to say. She wasn't looking for revenge. She already had what she needed. On her way to her seat, she passed him and paused just for a second. Not long enough to be a threat. Just long enough to make him look up. When he did, her voice was calm. Steady. Next time, she said, walk around. Then she sat down, pulled her hoodie up, and turned toward the window. And that was the end of it. Tanner never touched her again. Never spoke to her again. The joke stopped. The stares faded. And in their place was something new. Respect. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that comes when people realize they can't break you. The kind you earn. And Aaliyah James had earned it. What started as a battle over a seat became a lesson they'd all carry. She wasn't just the new girl. She wasn't just the only black girl on the bus. She was Aaliyah, the girl who said nothing until it mattered most. The girl who reminded them all that silence isn't weakness, it's power waiting to speak. And when it does, no one forgets it. As the author of Aaliyah's story, I want to take a moment to step back from the bus, the punches, the silence, and the tension, to speak directly to you, the listener. Aaliyah James wasn't looking to be a hero. She didn't walk onto that bus to change minds or make statements. She just wanted to make it through another day in a new school, to find a little peace, to be left alone. But when the world pokes at your dignity day after day, when people try to shrink your worth into something small and silent, you're eventually forced to choose, stay quiet, or stand up. And standing up doesn't always mean shouting. It doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes, it means looking someone in the eye and saying, "That's enough." It means walking through fire with your head held high and your voice steady. It means refusing to carry shame for someone else's ignorance. Aaliyah's story is one of quiet courage, of power that doesn't need to announce itself to be felt, and of the incredible shift that happens when even just one person chooses to stop shrinking and start standing. If you've ever been made to feel like you didn't belong, if you've ever been mocked, dismissed, or underestimated, if you've ever sat in silence, not because you had nothing to say, but because you were waiting for the right moment, this story is for you. And let me be clear, you do belong. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your presence. And your strength isn't measured by how loud you are, it's measured by how deeply you know your worth, even when others don't. So here's my advice: protect your peace, but don't confuse peace with silence. Know the difference between picking a fight and standing your ground. And when the time comes to speak, to act, to push back, do it with the confidence that you are not alone. Because when you stand in your truth, no matter how quietly, people take notice. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. From all of us here at U.S. Justice Story, thank you for listening. Thank you for believing in stories that matter. Stories that aren't just about justice in the courtroom, but justice in the classroom, on the bus, and everyday moments where dignity is challenged and courage rises in response. If Aaliyah's journey moved you, please consider subscribing, sharing this video, and joining us for more stories of quiet strength, powerful voices, and the kind of justice that starts with just one person saying, "Enough."